Hello, I'm Daniel Brint, and I'm going to talk about how a text type approach could help us in our teaching and secondary classrooms. The question I'd like to discuss is, how does an awareness of text type help develop comprehension skills? I've come to think that text types are something we take for granted, or at least do not take sufficient advantage of. We've all had the experience of thinking of something as a generalized thingness. Take birds, for example. Most of us can recognize a few particular birds, a pigeon, eagle, but the rest of them are just, birds. Someone who knows about birds is capable of understanding so much more about how they behave, why they nest here and not there, where they go in winter, etc. Texts are no different. The more we know about them, the more we understand what they do and how they work. That's important as readers of texts to understand how the text uses language and form to send certain messages, and creators. What kind of message are we sending? To whom? And why? Fortunately, and unlike birds, we're only really dealing with four main types: argumentative, narrative, descriptive, and expository. A good way of introducing the idea of a text type is to work with an expository text. My preference is a how something is made or done video on YouTube. There's a plethora of these, and they tend to use good visual information with either text on screen or voiceover. Make a transcript of the video. If you're in a hurry, you can copy and paste from the generated script, and then jumble up the process stages so that students are predicting the correct order. Watch the video to check predictions, which also gives a motivation for viewing. And after checking, set similar topics to small groups or pairs: how paper is made, how an album is recorded, etc. Students search for information about their topic and prepare a short written explanation modelled on the video they watched. The language and aims are understood according to their textual purpose: imperatives, linking words, modal verbs, etc., and the need to make something understood. In this way, the groundwork is done for moving on to more complex types. Part of the reward of looking at text types is understanding how creatively they can be used for different purposes. A few years ago, a TV commercial for the New Zealand Tourist Board was televised using a voice-over. Without knowing the source of the text, students are given a written version and asked to identify the text type from a series of options: a book blurb, a PlayStation game, a Nordic myth, etc. Now, usually only about 5% choose the correct answer, which is an advertisement. This is hardly surprising. The text uses the conventions and narrative descriptive style of mythical or fantasy texts, taking advantage of the New Zealand Lord of the Rings connection. And without the direct reference to Visit New Zealand, you probably wouldn't guess it's an argumentative text whose aim is to persuade you to take a holiday. It illustrates the purpose of a text might differ from its appearance and how different text types interact. Most fictional texts combine narrative, identifiable by the use of tenses and time adverbials, and description, which mostly uses adjectives and nouns. We can mark up or kind of color code a text like the New Zealand text according to these two terms: yellow for narrative and green for description, for example. And we can see where the balance or the predominance lies. Now, this is a nice visual activity. It also gives rise to a lot of discussion about whether something is narrated or described. It's also easily adaptable to different levels. As students identify for themselves the structural elements of a text, they develop the confidence to describe what is happening through their enhanced appreciation of language use. This can then be transferred to writing skills. In the case of the NZ commercial, I get them to create a similar text describing a region, a country of their own invention. The prompts for this are a series of pictures: mountains, villages, wildlife, lakes, castles, etc. And based on the text they've worked with, they give their land a mythic atmosphere, populated with imaginary beings and stories. This activity can be even more effective by providing a blank fantasy world map. These are easy to find online, which is completed with names and narratives of an invented history. Other aspects, such as visuals and fonts, are also important aspects of textual meaning. And this kind of activity has the advantage of allowing students to bring different skills, artistic, dramatic, geographical, into a teamwork production. Being aware of text types makes students more effective critical readers as well, equipping them with the tools to evaluate a message and decide to what extent it is effective, identify false content, and recognize how language is being used and to what purpose. These are key skills in an age of constant and often unfiltered information.